my God. I never thought I'd actually do the day where I'd really genuinely sit in front of the computer and go, what's up, YouTube? But here we are. What's up, YouTube? We just watched the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. We learned tons of information, tons of new things we know about the Nintendo Switch 2. Some really good, some really bad. We're going to organize our thoughts today into what I'd like to call the joys and the cons. And then we'll give our overall thoughts once we list them all out. Yeah, hitting everyone with the hi, YouTube. So let's start out. I have this little tallying notes app. Nintendo Switch 2. Joys and cons. Alright. So, start off with some of the joys. And well, there's a lot. There's a lot to talk about in terms of joys. Super duper fast. This thing's a beast. You know, full disclosure, this thing is a monster. Look at some of the stuff here. Huge screen, weighs about a pound. Who cares? Strong processor, great screen. When this thing is plugged in, it says up to here, up to 120 frames per second. That's insane. Most TVs don't even go to 120 frames per second. None of my monitors even go to 120 frames per second. The Steam Deck doesn't even hit 120 frames per second. And there are some games that have 4K support. Your games are gonna look crispy. High initial storage, Bluetooth, you know, 4K resolution at 60 frames per second, support to 120 frames at 1920 by 1080, and 256 by 1440, and HDR10, which is like the cool lighting and shit. New micro SD express card. We'll talk about that later. Might be in the cons. Backwards compatibility between your Joy-Cons, your regular Joy-Cons and your regular Pro controllers. Those work. Those work on your Nintendo Switch 2. Accelerometer, gyroscope, and mouse sensor located in the Joy-Con 2. Which leads us to our next Pro right here. Nice little segue. Mouse functions. This is something that they really sort of only touched on in the Direct. It didn't really make it clear if this was like a main focus of the things. The Joy-Cons can now act as a mouse. We'll just use this Joy-Con here as an example. So what they revealed is that with the Joy-Con 2s, what you can do now is that a lot of the Joy-Cons will have a functionality where these can offer or run like a actual mouse as well, like on a flat surface, sort of like this. And you can click on both like it's a mouse right there. And you can, there are games that will have that functionality where you could like sort of use that as a mouse. Now they didn't have any games that like really looked like it took action with that. They had a couple things like, oh, we updated some new Mario Party mini games to like show that. But where I think this is really gonna like shine is shooters. Being able to play like a shooter or a first-person shooter with mouse control, wheelchair basketball game. I mean, yeah, they showed that one, but it was like kind of fun. It was like kind of fun. I'm probably not gonna get it, mainly for things like pricing, which we'll get to. But I think this can really help, like, trust me, when the next Splatoon game is announced, it's definitely going to be using these mouse controls, and it's going to be sick as fuck. It's going to be, like, maybe the optimal way to play console shooters, which is insane to say that Nintendo would corner the market on that. Switch 2 version of ARMS, that shit is dead in the water. ARMS 2 is never coming back, ever. Maybe. That thing was a flop and a half. But anyway, mouse function can spell a lot of good You know, there's really not too much with it now, but I think it will be huge going into the future. Leading up sort of to technical stuff, we have I mean, the Joy-Con controllers, whatever, they all look like pretty good. Our next pro here is, you might have heard it, backwards compatibility. So, if we go to our main, we'll see right here, in addition to Nintendo Switch 2 games, Nintendo Switch 2 can play compatible physical and digital games released on the Nintendo Switch system. Which we knew going into this, but it's just refreshing to see how much compatibility there is with almost every single first-party Nintendo game. Right here, almost all of them are fully compatible backwards. There is a sliver here of not compatible games, which might be a little alarming at first, but when you scroll down and see, it's just games that fully have to use Nintendo Switch 1 hardware. Interestingly, 1-2 Switch and Everybody 1-2 Switch are a part of those, because apparently the Joy-Con 2 controllers don't include an IR motion camera, which, because this is such a small list of games, actually shows that there are a couple of them that aren't going to be compatible. And then Nintendo Labo, but we're adults here. We're not playing with cardboard. We're playing with video games. Let's cut the crap. Okay? And honestly, they also go through this whole list for non-Nintendo based products. Which Labo heads riot? Is it here? Oh yeah, here it is. Here's the list. They actually list every single game that has some sort of issues that is a Nintendo Switch 1 game and is having issues currently with launching on Nintendo Switch 2. They literally list every single one, calls out the publisher, and says like, oh, it's being investigated. Which is really funny that they basically made an entire call out PDF to be like, this game isn't working. Hope your publisher's working on it, or else it's not gonna work on the new Nintendo Switch 2. Here it is. Like the fact there's just full disclosure saying you gotta go talk to these guys because we can't launch our game on the system if they don't know how it works. Really funny. GameCube games on Nintendo Switch Online. Well, let's check it out. What's new on Nintendo Switch Online and Nintendo Switch 2? The game chat, which, spoiler alert, I'm not going to put in the pros. We're probably going to go in the cons, and I'll explain why later. But Nintendo Switch GameCube games finally coming to Nintendo Switch Classics. Huge. Launch games, Wind Waker, F-Zero GX, and Soul Calibur, with a couple more coming on the way as the time goes on, like Mario Sunshine, Pokemon Coliseum, Pokemon X Gale of Darkness, Fire Emblem. No mention of Melee, which is insane, because this would finally lead to official Melee support of official Nintendo Online. New GameCube controller is fire. I mean, it is fire. It's got an extra Z button. It's got that classic C button that they've added. No, they made no mention of Melee. Not a single one. Despite the fact that it's like what you would think of when you think of a GameCube Melee game. So only 3 at start. Admittedly, 3 pretty good ones. But to put in perspective how long we've been kind of waiting for this, Nintendo Switch, or Nintendo Classics or whatever, started with the Wii Shop channel. Ninja Gaiden 1, Ninja Gaiden 2. And on the Nintendo Wii Shop channel, you could get these classic games. And the Nintendo Switch Shop channel went up to Nintendo 64 games. So we have essentially been waiting 20 years for Nintendo to offer GameCube games on their classic services. 20 years. It's not like the hardware couldn't keep up. I mean, they're GameCube games. They're not that intensive to run. But they've just been holding out so long. Forever. But now we can finally get GameCube games. Huge. Huge, huge, huge. People have been begging for that, so I have to put in the pros. So we talked about the classic games. Let's just go into the full game lineup. Game lineup. Tier 1 looks solid. They announced a good amount of games. I mean, if you go on r/gaming, you know, top news source for all gaming related things, you can see right here, you know, it's even hard to even look at the whole list, but what happened there? You know, we got Mario Kart World. We've got almost every game that wasn't already on the Switch and on other consoles. Most of them just got announced on this Switch. For Switch 2. Elden Ring. Upgrades to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Metroid Prime 4. Dusk Bloods. This one is ginormous. I'll talk about that one in a bit. Kirby Air Ride. A new Kirby Air Ride. Amazing. Donkey Kong Bonanza. Great name. Basically 3D Mario. Freaking Deltarune Chapters 1 through 4 on launch. Crazy. Hades 2. Pokemon Legends. A whole bunch of, like, Borderlands 4. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. Almost every game was already on the Switch 1. And every game that wasn't on the Switch 1, every game's gonna be on the Switch 2. We're getting an insane amount of games. And in terms of, like, new games, we have Mario Kart World, just this year. Metroid Prime 4, not exclusive, but, you know, it's on the new system. Pokemon. Kirby Air Riders. Donkey Kong, and I assume we'll probably have like a big winter game, you know, in sort of typical Nintendo fashion. So we have a decent lineup, a whole bunch of third-party support. There's a lot to look forward to, and we will specifically talk now about the Dusk Bloods, or, you know, we'll call a spade here. Bloodborne 2. And there's a reason I have to give this its own sort of line. Because this was part of the reason I really even wanted to, like, talk about this, because I have a lot of thoughts about this. Dusk Blood. And it put in perspective a lot of these things. This was kind of the most insane direct ever in terms of full games being revealed and discussed. Because I can talk directly about 3 full games that I have seen in real time. People have been salivating and begging either for, or for more information for, or new information for. And one of them, probably the most recent, was Deltarune. You know, obviously it's a shorter time frame, but people have been begging and asking, where's Deltarune? Where's Deltarune? This Direct delivered it. Day 1, you can play Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4. Insane. Already huge. Ginormous right there. You satisfied so many people. The other one, game number 2, was Silk Song, the sequel to Hollow Knight. That one, you might not have even noticed that it was announced, because they put it in the sizzle reel of all of the other games being announced, of like, oh yeah, we don't have a choice for these. Which is insane, because this is a game that was announced maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And people have been begging for more information. It keeps getting pushed back. And they just were like, on a whim, like, yeah, you know, here you go. Coming out this year. Don't even have to think about it. Which is probably the funniest way to announce that game, is coming out. And third, and finally, is Bloodborne. Just Bloodborne. a remake of Bloodborne. People have been dying for. And funnily enough, Bloodborne was a PS4 exclusive game that notoriously kind of ran like shit when it first came out, and still kind of runs like shit. As of right now, there is no way to play it on the PS5. None. It's a PlayStation exclusive game, and there is zero way to play it on PlayStation 5. So people have been begging PlayStation to re-release Bloodborne, remake Bloodborne. Just allow me to play the game. And every state of play for Sony, and all the comments, everything, are like, Bloodborne, where's Bloodborne? We want Bloodborne. And they have just been, I've seen in real time, people just give up hope that we're not getting Bloodborne. Bloodborne is admittedly a fucking awesome game, and also made by FromSoft. So for Nintendo to come out swinging with all these games and go, we've got one more thing from our partners. From Software exclusive. It's called Duskblood. Aesthetically and everything, it is Bloodborne 2. We jumped the shark. They said, we don't even need Bloodborne. I mean, they probably couldn't even get Bloodborne. They said, we're gonna make our own Bloodborne. And it's gonna be a cross between Elden Ring and Bloodborne. You know, Elden Ring, the biggest game ever, game of the year, ginormous, super huge. We're gonna make that our Bloodborne. We're gonna make that the next Bloodborne. And also, it's going to be a Nintendo Switch exclusive. That is actually totally blew my mind. Like, totally unironically, I couldn't believe my eyes and ears when I saw that was announced and they said that it was exclusive. Because all of my life, the thing that was the biggest knock against Nintendo products and Nintendo games as a whole was that they were always kind of shunned out of the cool, cutting-edge, third-party titles that people really wanted on PlayStation and Xbox and PC. So for Nintendo, on the announcement of their new console, say, hey, we have the really cool, exciting third-party game that everyone really wants, and it's exclusive to our console. You're gonna have a bunch of like action game, like non-Nintendo haters have to be like, I have to buy the Nintendo Switch 2 to play the cool new third-party action game. That never happens. Can't say Nintendo is for babies anymore. Yeah, you can. You get the cool third-party games. And with, you know, I'll save the rest of it, because that'll actually go into my con, maybe my overall thought. Yeah, this game is insane. This game, I mean, I already know for a fact, it's FromSoft, it's Bloodborne, it's Elden Ring. These dudes don't miss. They don't miss. They make incredible, amazing, beautiful experiences. It's gonna be an insanely awesome game. It's just, they already have a super system seller next year. Already. That's awesome. I never thought I'd see the day where the Nintendo system seller would be a third-party super cool action game. How did they pull that off? I have no idea. So, to wrap up the joys list, we can really give a really succinct... In terms of the literal definitions of what a game console does, this is the ultimate machine for playing video games. That's in terms of all the literal aspects. In terms of the specs it takes to play the game, I mean, think about it now too. If the Nintendo Joy-Con can be a mouse, that also opens up the world to get compatibility with almost every PC game that like only works on a PC. So you can have a handheld a console and a PC operating as one thing. You could technically put every single game on the Nintendo Switch 2. There's no barriers to entry anymore. You can put every game. Everything. Unlimited games. We might have hit the end of video games. I mean, obviously not really. There will be more, and there'll be more consoles past it, but like, as of right now, this has the potential to just be no video game machine. It'll always be its own thing. But in terms of console war, Xbox, they have given up. They have just straight up given up the console wars. I will genuinely be surprised if we get another Xbox. I really do. I think Microsoft's done. I don't think they want to be a part of it. They lost. They accepted that they lost. They're in the business of selling the Game Pass. Sony probably could still stick around. They'll probably still make consoles, but they're not. You know, PS5 has been selling good. It hasn't been selling like crazy. But it's just been clear for the past couple years that Nintendo has just really kind of been the leader. And with how good the Switch 2 sort of has lined up to be, and the games that are on it, and how much is on it, and the exclusives that are on it, and having the third-party exclusives, this could be the end of a console war. Insane. So, yeah. Pretty damn good. Pretty damn good for Nintendo in terms of their joys. This could be the ultimate machine. And I'm looking forward to getting it, and I will get it. But, we've only went through the joys. And as the Nintendo Switch, you have joys, and you have cons. And for as many joys as there are on the Nintendo Switch 2, and how much I've already lauded, praised it, there are certainly a lot of cons that really sour the whole thing. Doesn't ruin it, but there's a lot to discuss about what it might do wrong and what it is doing wrong. So let's write it down. Cons. I mean, number one, right off the gate, super obvious. Brutal pricing. Brutal. This thing is expensive. No ifs, ands, or buts around it. Very, very, very expensive. If I can pull up. Such things up the price. Where is it? At the bottom. It's expensive. No ifs, ands, or buts around it. This is my registered to buy, interest to buy from the Nintendo store. And I offered to go with the Nintendo Switch and Mario Kart bundle. $4.99. $4.99 for this double bundle. Without the bundle, it's $4.49. So right here, you know, $4.49 versus $4.99, about $50. So you'd expect, oh, Mario Kart World is $50. Nope. Mario Kart World is not $50. It's $50 if you get the bundle, which is why I opted to do it. Here it is. $80. $80. This is genuinely insane. This is like the most expensive baseline game. Definitely of like Nintendo, of just like a normal video game. Definitely of Nintendo's lifetime. I don't know another AAA game that has ever done this. I think there are games that are worth $80. But just to like set the baseline of like, this is your launch game and it's $80 is fucking insane. The Donkey Kong game, already $70. The debate before this came out was, will Nintendo Switch games be $60 or $70? Because every single Nintendo Switch game was $60 except for one. Tears of the Kingdom, which, okay, you get a pass there. It's your giant flagship game. We know how big Breath of the Wild is. Tears of the Kingdom was like 3 times as big. Super duper huge. Technical marvel. Mainline Zelda game. You can get away with 70. Video games have been $60 for 25 years. NES games used to be $50. Inflation has changed a lot. There's real validity to trying to change the price. But just going up past all that to $80 is mind-boggling. What the hell? What is all of this? Where did this all come from? Now, obviously, there's a lot of political things at play with tariffs and such. And I think that does play a part in why everything is so expensive. In fact, if you read on the Japanese sites, the Switch in Japan is significantly cheaper if you buy a Japanese-only model. As in a system, Japanese system that only has a Japanese, like, interface and everything. In fact, the USD, it's actually only about $340, which is like cheaper than a Nintendo Switch 2. I mean, like a Nintendo Switch Pro is about that much, I think. I don't know how much they are exactly in Japan, but it is so much cheaper. If you get a multi-language model, as in one you have to ship out, it's like this $450. So, I mean, you could argue if you just learn Japanese, you can get a decently priced Nintendo Switch 2. That's what I'm saying, is that a price jump was definitely due. It was 100% due. Video games have been $60 forever, and that they were gonna go up to $70. But there's been so much about like how the volume of how many video games I've sold has shifted. You know, only now have games really shifted to 70. But them to jump the shark on 70 and say we're going straight to 80 is ludicrous. And they're doing it because they know they can. You know? Obviously there's like tariffs and stuff. I looked it up. In Europe, when you buy European games, I'll add this to the cons list specifically. Difference in price for physical and digital. Mario Kart 8 is 80 euros if you buy it digitally. It's actually 90 euros if you try to buy it physically. It's even more expensive, which is absolutely insane that they would even think to do that. Thankfully in the US, they're not changing it, but dude, like Canadian dollars, video games are gonna be like $100. How top of the expensive console, that is, it just hurts. It just hurts, man. It's really lame. So brutal. Internal UI is almost exactly the same. Now this one's a bit of a more nitpick, I will be honest. But remember how you would turn on your Wii and you'd have that sort of like whole channel interface? And you go in the Wii Shop channel and you have that really cool music. And you go in the Mii Maker, you have that really cool music. Well, the channel interface was cool, it's fun, it's nostalgic. Pulling up a tweet for this one. We're doing next level journalism here. This is the UI for the Switch 2. Looks exactly the same as Switch 1. And that's disappointing. That's disappointing because the Wii, the GameCube, the Wii U, 3DS all had such cool, unique interfaces that had so much charm, so much character to them. And the Switch came out and they kind of like, none of it was there. But it got a pass. It got a pass because the Wii U sucked so much that, you know, you can give them the benefit of the doubt to be like, hey, we didn't have time to add cool charm and character to our system and our UI. 8 years later, you have a chance. Nintendo Switches sells like hotcakes. They're successful. They're great. They do awesome. And we finally get the UI and it's exactly the same. there's no excuse to not have a cool and interesting UI. You know, even if it's just something small, like some music or whatever. They could change this with updates, but I mean, it looks exactly the same. This is exactly what the Switch looks like. This is more a symptom of something I'll kind of like discuss later, but I'll still keep it as a con because it's kind of shit. I'm gonna put this as a con. The game chat, they focused a lot on it, but holy shit, looked like it ran terribly. There were some aspects about the game chat that actually looked interesting. But for the most part, man. Like, oh, you could play with your friends and then you could have your, you know, your camera on and stuff. It's like cool. If not for the fact that I've been using Discord and everyone who wants to do this has been using Discord or a PlayStation Party Chat or whatever for like their entire fucking lives. Like, I think it's okay to have this, but it's more of like, you should have had this forever. It's cool that you have it now, but if you watch these trailers, man, in the freaking trailer, the share screen thing was awful, dude. It looked so bad. It was like laggy and whatever, and like, dude, it was the trailer to show it off. What? Why would you even show this? I'm not excited about this. The camera thing admittedly has some cool application. Like, oh, you can put it where your character is in Mario Party. That was kind of fun. You know, it's Nintendo. They'll find cool ways to like incorporate things. But like, oh, you can chat with your people while you're on the system. Like, I'm just not going to do that. See, yeah, here, like Mario Party. Like, you got your things in there. They'll show up. One thing that was actually cool was that you can actually share a very select few games. Going streamer mode with the camera was so funny. That one was really funny. It was, yeah, the face stuff, it's like surface level. I didn't think it was great. It was at least an application, as opposed to everything else here of like, dude, it's voice controlled Mario Party games and me screaming. That, I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, Mario Party feels like the tech demo. Oh, I forgot about the GameCube microphone plugin. But it's like, yeah, this little camera, game chat. I'm on Discord. It's easier for me to just be on Discord while I'm playing the game. It's just dumb. Oh yeah, I mean, they're gonna be really bad. The only thing that I was kind of good was that a select few games will be using shared games online while you chat. So like if I have said like Mario 3D World, which honestly that was the only game in the lineup that really seemed like be like multiplayer focused. Only one person who has a Nintendo Switch 2 needs the game, and they can just share the whole game, which was pretty cool actually. You know what? And you know what? While we're here, I'll throw that on a game share. That's a pro. It's not a big pro, but it's there. But yeah, game chat, I think it's just dumb. I think it's stupid. I think it's okay as a whole concept, but it took up so much of the presentation. It was an hour long, so it was fine, but like, I don't. You're trying to sell me on video chat? I do this. We do this. We've been doing video chat for years. I can't be excited about it, especially when it looks kind of like shit. Sorry. Pay for upgrades. Speaking of the Mario Party Jamboree. So, what seems to be we don't have all of the facts surrounding this right now, but it seems that a lot of the Switch 1 games will offer some sort of like improvement upgrades, some with DLC content, some without DLC content. A lot of them you will have to pay for. I'm trying to find more information on it, but it seems that a lot of the things that aren't DLC related, like new content, like Mario Party Jamboree, can be about $10 to upgrade. Now, this isn't going against the backwards compatibility. This is offering some sort of like substantial sort of visual upgrade, like the Zelda ones they talked about. Stable frame rate, maybe 60 frames per second. Visual fidelity, maybe 4K. Some games will offer like a real upgrade like that, but you have to pay for it. You pay like $10 for it. And I think that's just kind of shitty. For the Mario Party thing, that's $20. Now, Mario Party thing, granted, kind of like DLC, so you're gonna pay for it. But I think, you know, you shouldn't have to pay for this. I don't think you should. I think it should be a free update, and it says, hey, we made the game easier to run. Especially for Nintendo Switch games, because a lot of Nintendo Switch games, their trouble with running on the Switch actively holds back like the frame rate and like having it look like kind of decent. So to offer these upgrades at a price where it's like, dude, I already bought the fucking game, man. Why do I have to do this again? I have to buy an upgrade even though it wasn't running okay in the first place? Again, it's one of those things where it's like, it's up to you, but it's really just, it's setting a bad precedent that Nintendo usually doesn't do. I talked about how like the year one lineup looks solid. I will say day one lineup, fairly bare. The only games that I would really even genuinely be excited to play on launch are Mario Kart, which again, pretty cool. Seems like a big, cool, expansive game. And Deltarune. But Deltarune's coming out on other systems as well. Day one lineups I'm usually not too like hung up on. Especially since they announced the Donkey Kong game would be coming out in July. Just wait a month, you know? But day one, it's like, what are you gonna play, Mario Kart? That's it. You're gonna only have the amount of money to pay for Mario Kart. That's all we got. This one's also a lighter one. It's not that huge of a deal. But it's a con. You know, you need a good lineup to convince people to play. And just Mario Kart, I don't think is enough to, you know, sell a whole system. Oh, this one, egregious here. Tech demo game is paid. So they announced on the stream this game that I actually want to like show you guys the trailer for it, because this shit looked like a corporate tech demo. Like usually they'll include games that are like, oh, it's like a little selection or collection of games that kind of like help explain what the system's about, and really help like make it look kind of cool. They'll include that in the system, you know, Wii Sports-esque, Nintendo Land, stuff like that. There's one for the Nintendo Switch 2 that helps explain, you know, what are the things that make Nintendo Switch 2 different. And I'm not even joking, this didn't even look like a video. It looked like a corporate slideshow. And then at the end of the trailer, they had the gall to be like, this is a paid add-on. Where is it? Yeah, Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour. That they're charging money for this. PlayStation 5, they had Astro's Playroom, which was the predecessor to Astrobot, which won Game of the Year, by the way. A really fun and cool and celebratory platformer. Included with PlayStation 5, that told you all the cool shit PlayStation could do, not in a freaking slideshow-ass format, as an actual video game. And the crazy part is, like, Nintendo were the people that started the fun, cool add-on game to explain what made your system cool. So for them to drop the ball and have the worst iteration of this ever, why would anyone buy this? No, it's not the response to Astrobot. This is their hubris. Their hubris. They're like, fuck it, let's charge it. There's not even a game. This has to be like $10 at most. If this is anything more than $10, it's mind-boggling. I'm paying for a museum tour. What if it's really fun? Well then, all right, fine. But it's like, what? Did you see a game other than mini games? There was nothing there. I couldn't believe it. I genuinely couldn't believe they charged money for this. Well, yeah. But it's like, if you're giving, like, I'm paying $450 for this console. Give me the museum tour for free. And like the fact that it's like, how do the magnets work? You gotta pay for it. We gotta pay to tell where the magnets are in our system. They should operate on state museum rules. If you have an ID or a license or proof that you live in Nintendo Land, this should be free. I don't know. But one funny thing I do want to touch on, I can't show you because I already did it, but in order to register through Nintendo to find interest to buy the Nintendo Switch 2, what they actually do is that to stop scalpers, in order to register interest, you actually need to have a gamer credit, almost. And what that means is that in order to get a verified link to buy it through the Nintendo Store, you need to A, have been paying for Nintendo Switch Online for 12 months, and B, at some point logged 50 hours worth of playing Nintendo Switch games. Which sounds a little shitty, but it's supposed to be anti-scalper. Like, oh, you know, if you don't actually have interest in the game, you can't just buy the console to scalp it. So it sounds chicken paper, but, you know, I'm on the receiving end of why it's good, so I enjoy this. Sucks for people like you, Ketty, who were interested in buying the Nintendo Switch 2 to get into it, but have nothing to your name that shows you have Nintendo interest. So good luck trying to get it through official Nintendo Store pre-orders. And we have two other small cons I wanted to touch on. We have license the game. So some of the physical games that will be offered for the Nintendo Switch 2 are actually not physical games. You know, when you buy a cartridge, the game is on the cartridge. That is the case for some of the Nintendo Switch 2 cartridges that you will be buying, but not all of them. Some of them are actually just a license key, meaning it's just a way for the game to check that you should legally own the game, and then it just downloads the game. And that really sucks because for a couple of reasons. One, you know, you only have so much storage space. So, you know, if you buy, it's the worst of having buying a physical game. It takes up a physical space in your apartment or your room or whatever. But at least you don't have to download the game and it's on the card. Not anymore. If you buy a physical, it might be more expensive, and you know what? You might still have to download the game anyway. But really the main issue with the license key thing is the fact that you don't actually ever own the game. If for whatever reason you're playing some sort of live service-esque game and it goes under, and you have a physical copy, in a world where you have the physical cartridge, you can play the game. You have the game. But if for whatever reason they lose the copyright or whatever and they take the game off of the shelves, on a license key game, the publisher has the right to revoke your access to play this game. So there's a chance you could buy a physical game, have the physical cartridge, and never be able to play the game. Now obviously that's like a worst case scenario, but it's this concerning trend that a lot of capitalistic things have really been going, in which you don't have ownership of anything. You're renting everything. You don't own these games. You're renting them from the companies to use them, and they have the right to revoke that or get rid of that if they so choose. So, you know, a lot of these games probably won't be too affected, but again, you're losing a little bit of your consumer power, little by little, and it sucks. It sucks that this is happening. And then finally, another short little con here. New micro SD card. This is a small one. The micro SD cards that the Nintendo Switch 2 uses are technically different micro SD cards than what a normal one is. They're called Express micro SD cards. Had no idea these even existed until today. But guess what? These new SD cards are kind of fucking expensive, but it still sucks. On top of all the other pricing things you have to deal with in order to get extra storage, you're gonna shell out a little bit more. Kind of sucks. Can you tell I don't have a job anymore? And those were actually all of the listed pros and cons that I had. So now I want to give my overall thought. Let's go into the overall thought. So now that we've listed out kind of really much in detail everything that I really wanted to touch on, I want to have some, let's compile it all. Now, at the baseline, you know, the system will be fun. The Switch is fun. The Switch 2 is the Switch, but slightly better. It's going to be good. At the end of the day, you're going to have fun. It's going to be awesome. You're going to be able to play a bunch of your games. You're going to be able to play a bunch of new games. You're going to have a good time. And it will be worth a purchase. But the thing that really sucks about a lot of this is that I am very uneasy about the precedent that is being set by the Nintendo Switch 2. Easy precedent. Nintendo historically has been usually very consumer friendly with a lot of their things, you know. How their hardware used to be, you know, renowned for being as durable as possible. GameCube surviving falls off of a story. DS's being able to be dropped over and over again. The famous Game Boy that survived an atomic bomb that they show in the New York Nintendo World. I don't know if it's still there, but they're known for their durability. They're known for keeping things consumer friendly. And within the past couple of years, we've kind of seen that erode a little bit. You know, Joy-Con drift. Things like the dock being cheap. The Nintendo Switch at launch had a lot of issues. The dock scratches the screen. All these sort of like little things. Nintendo Switch Online, you gotta pay for online. They raised the Nintendo Switch Online price. The online's still not good. You know, they're finally finding ways to try and nickel and dime you. And again, they're a company. At the end of the day, it was not an atomic. Yeah, I think it was just a regular bomb. I might have just been a regular bomb. I might have to have an addendum to that. It was a regular bomb. Game Boy bomb. Where is it? Gulf War. Gulf War. My bad, guys. Wasn't atomic. Yeah, we don't have the cockroach Game Boy. That one. They didn't come up with that one. But they have not. They're a company, so they will nickel and dime. Their bottom line is to make more money, but they've usually done a good job of respecting the customer while they make their money. And they still make good games, but I think Nintendo has a little bit of hubris, maybe, from their Nintendo Switch success. It was wildly successful, did so well, and they were a little not consumer friendly. You know, they rushed some things, got some things out. I mean, look at all the Mario sports games that they released. They released a ton of Mario sports games. You guys remember the Mario sports games when you played as a kid, like Mario Tennis, Mario Soccer, all those things? They were loaded with content and things and games to do. And, you know, you might just say like nostalgia goggles and stuff, but they released so many of these games and they were all so bare bones. They had like a semi-decent system, but then nothing really to do with it. And they released that type of game so many times. And think of it, we played Mario Tennis Aces like what, 3 or 4 times? Really not that much. There really wasn't that much to do. They kind of make a lot of their spin-offs, they'll make kind of like half-baked games, throw them out there because they'll sell a couple million copies and they make a ton of money off. And I think Nintendo's kind of realized that they can get away with that, and they're kind of pushing the envelope. Yes, they have to deal with the tariffs. Yes, they have to deal with uncertainty around how this product is going to get around the world, overseas, particularly to the US. Does that explain why the console is as expensive as it is? A little bit, you know? I think $450 for the console is justifiable. I think it really is. You know, we've been paying relatively the same amount for consoles. PlayStation 5 is a shit ton of money. This thing is really fucking strong and it's portable. It's $450 is not out of the realm of possibility, and I'm honestly okay paying $450 for a Switch. Do I wish it was cheaper? Yes, I do. But it's explainable why it's that price, especially with the tariff. The price of the games is not a little ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. They're pushing the envelope pretty hard. And I think they're pushing the envelope due to their sort of hubris. I'm trying to see how I want to frame this. They're pushing the envelope because of this. Nintendo believes that they can corner the market and has a shot to do so. What I mean by this is that kind of what I ended up at the Joy section, where like this thing is powerful, it can play pretty much most of the games it needs to play. With the mouse control, there's this whole new world of adding in PC games, games that you typically wouldn't even think to be 24% base tariff on Japan. Holy shit. Dude, is this thing gonna be even more expensive? Oh, man. That's brutal. In real time? 24% cringe tariff? I wish it was a cringe tariff. Dude. That's crazy. Well, I mean, yeah, see, this is what that's priced in. I hope it's priced in. I really do. Could be more. I don't know. But Nintendo has a chance to have a console that knocks everything out of the park and can do anything, pretty much. Have any type of game. There's already so many games on it. It's backwards compatible with so many of them that are already in the Nintendo Switch 1. It already has a huge catalog. It's going to get even bigger. People are still going to make games for it. It's huge. And I really, really want to focus on Duskbloods, because that was like kind of the last bastion of like the cool, awesome action game being on the Switch as a fucking exclusive, and how Microsoft and to a lesser degree Sony have been in the console wars. Nintendo could corner the console market, and I really think they have a shot at doing it. Obviously, they're not going to have a full monopoly, but I think they're kind of going to become the consensus, like, yeah, this is the if you want one console to own, it's going to be the Nintendo Switch 2. Sorry, buddy. You know, doesn't matter how Nintendo baby cringe it is. It's becoming the console that just has the most, bar none. And I think Nintendo knows this. And I think that's why they feel so comfortable pushing the envelope for things like $80 MSRP games, which is insane. Which is insane to charge, but they can get away with it because it's fucking Mario Kart, dude. What, are you not gonna buy it? Of course you're gonna buy it. $70 for a Donkey Kong Bonanza game. You're gonna buy it, you know? $10, but how big of a difference is that? But when you're those leaders, when you're kind of that leader in that space, especially for Nintendo, which was usually the person that really kept things really reasonable. It's just not great to see. It's just not great to see. And a lot of these little cons aren't really too big, but as a whole, speak to this sort of speaks to this extreme sort of anti-consumer, I don't want to say agenda, because it's like not the whole thing, but it's, you know, it's almost a strategy. It's a strategy. They can get away with it. They can make more money this way. So things like, you know, the UI being exactly the same, the pay for the upgrades, the tech demo is paid, the license key games, you need a new micro SD card. All of these in a vacuum are really not that big of an issue. But I think they all culminate together to speak to this sort of not great feeling when I think about trying to get this console or owning this. For the first time, I kind of feel like guilty almost for like wanting to get the Nintendo Switch console. If that makes sense. Just because it's like the first time I feel like they haven't been doing kind of scummy, you know? Let me write down that Elden Ring thing. I actually have a note for it here that I'm just gonna copy. I wrote it down. Oh wow. Yeah, so I wrote that the new Elden Ring being an exclusive feels like a sucker punch to the rest of the industry. How can you compete when Nintendo has the cool third-party games and not someone else? You know? That was like the one thing that was like, oh, you know, you could have a Switch, but you're not gonna get this. Now you do have it. That's kind of crazy, and I still think that's so crazy, and I think it's crazy to do. It's like cool that they can do it, but you know, dude, there's like, what's the competition anymore? And then finally, I wanted to close with, well, not close, but one of the last points I had was that Mario Kart $80. Mario Kart being $80 has, I think, had a goal in mind when they were making this price, and it has already achieved one of its goals. And one of those goals was manufacturing cents for $70 games. My little tinfoil hat conspiracy thing is that for a long time, the past couple of years, there's been a lot of debate on video games and their pricing, and I touched on it earlier. How much should a video game cost? $60 to $70? I think what kept video games at $60 for so long was the introduction of microtransactions, continued monetization. I think that was able to keep games at that $60 mark for a long time because, oh, you could charge $60. Well, you also could make more money off of it. Or you could go free to play and make your money off the whales. That kept games at that price for long enough. And, you know, maybe some things that were single player and microtransactions were maybe hurt by that. So the discussion became, you know, should games be raised to $70? You know, there's a couple games that already did it. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, huge game. A lot of Sony games, AAA games have started becoming $70. There's been a lot of pushback. Games have been the same price for a long time. I think it's justified to go to 70. But I think there should still have been a push to keep it at 60 for the consumer-friendly thing. Nintendo, of all people, is the one that actually blew the lid open to say, my games are $80. Some of our games are $80. They might even be $90, depending on where you live. Who knows? Who knows? And I think it's like extra egregious because A, they could get away with it, and B, you know, everyone's focused on Mario Kart being $80 to $90, that no one even cares that the Donkey Kong game is $70. So now, you know, they've kind of shifted the narrative, and honestly, I think there will even be pushback for this. You know, maybe Nintendo will pump the brakes, say, you know, physical and digital won't be different prices. You know, they'll the phrase I want to use. Not quite moving the goalposts, but they'll set it so far what's the name of that foul? What's the argument? The name of the logical argument of like going so far in one extreme in hopes to reach the middle, so that when you like have some sort of like, oh, we're gonna like come together and make an agreement about it, you reach yourself at the middle, which was your end goal anyway. What is that called? I forget what that's called. But I think that's their goal. Their goal is to have that sort of, you know, move the goalpost so far that like maybe they, you know, give you a little inch. Okay, Mario Kart's maybe $70. Oh wait, we did it! Mario Kart's $70. Wait a minute. Before today, Mario Kart $70 was the worst case scenario. So they're kind of really paving the way to really keep all games $70. And on top of all of the other small little things, I'm just not too excited about a lot of the Switch things. It will probably be at least $500 for the console at retail now. Not sure if all Switch games are imported or how that works. Well, there were a lot of reports that Nintendo has already imported a lot of Nintendo Switch 2s already, and they're like sitting in warehouses for these tariff things. I've read a couple reports that like there are, I think, a couple warehouses are just filled with Nintendo Switch 2s because they wanted to get this. I mean, that's why it's releasing so early. That's why, you know, the price is what it is. They have already brought in a lot of Nintendo Switch 2s. Like, they're already in the States. Which is what they were sort of getting at. But, yeah, that's pretty much everything I really wanted to talk about with the Nintendo Switch 2. I think it will be a really good console. I think it's got a lot of really cool things lined up for it. I'm probably going to be buying it day one. I spelled precedent wrong. Did I spell a lot of this right? This will be really embarrassing if a lot of this I don't spell right and I leave it in the video for so long. But I'll get it. It's gonna be fun. But I have become a little worried, and I'm a little worried about how Nintendo as a company is going to operate going into the future as a game company, because it's been no surprise that the game industry as a whole, has really been trending towards a lot of anti-consumer things. I mean, every industry is sort of like that, but it's been felt particularly in the gaming industry. And I think, this was supposed to be a day of celebration of oh my god, the new console, but it's kind of marred by a lot of these little cons here, and it just doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel great. But at the end of the day, they're just video games. It's a new console. It's gonna have cool new games, and we're gonna have fun. So, I think we should be conscious consumers, but we should enjoy things that we want to enjoy. So, up to you to get a Nintendo Switch console, Nintendo Switch 2 console if you'd like. I think I'll be getting one. And it's important to measure all of your products and consume consciously. And those are my closing thoughts. Thank you all so much for sticking with me, talking through this. Try to make a YouTube video out of this. I really appreciate everyone who's here. And let's see if we can cut this up to be a cool YouTube video. And I'll maybe try learning some editing skills. But now we have some Skyrim. Follow me on twitch.tv/floaties if you'd like to see some videos like these, or just check out me playing video games at a normal, on my normal things. I do Nuzlocke, I do Skyrim Permadeath, Mario games, a whole bunch. I do a whole bunch. So, stop by if you can.